I gave my son a kidney to save his life. A year later, he refused to help me with my own surgery, saying he was too busy. So I changed my will. When he found out, I'm glad you're here with me. Please listen to my story till the end and let me know which city you're listening from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled. I used to believe that motherhood was about unconditional love. That's what I told myself when I signed the consent forms to donate my kidney to Daniel, my only son, my miracle baby, born after 3 miscarriages and years of hoping. The surgery happened on a cold February morning 2 years ago. I remember the antiseptic smell of the hospital, the nervous squeeze Daniel gave my hand before they wheeled me away. "I love you, Mom," he'd said, his eyes wet. I'll never forget this. Recovery was harder than I'd expected. The scar across my side ached for months. I tired easily. My doctor said it was normal, my body adjusting to functioning with 1 kidney instead of 2. But I didn't complain. Daniel was alive. He was thriving. That was all that mattered, or so I thought. The first sign came 6 months after the surgery. Daniel and his wife Ashley had always visited every Sunday for dinner. It was our tradition, started when they got married 5 years ago. But the visits became sporadic, every other week, then once a month. The excuses were always reasonable: work deadlines, Ashley's yoga retreats, weekend trips with friends. "You understand, right, Mom?" Daniel would say over the phone, his tone apologetic but distant. "Things are just really busy right now." I understood. Or rather, I told myself I understood. Young couples needed their space. I remembered being 32, building my nursing career, enjoying my freedom. But something felt different. Something in his voice had changed. A coldness I couldn't quite name. The second sign was subtler. When Daniel did visit, Ashley dominated every conversation. She talked about their new house in Westchester, the renovations they were planning, the investment opportunities Daniel's promotion had opened up. She'd rest her hand on his arm possessively, finishing his sentences, answering questions I'd directed at him. I noticed how Daniel seemed smaller beside her, how he'd glance at her before responding to even simple questions. "Mom's asking if you want more potatoes, honey," Ashley would say with a bright smile that never reached her eyes. "But we're watching our carbs, remember?" The third sign was the photographs. They'd always sent me photos, holidays, date nights, casual moments. But after the surgery, I appeared in fewer and fewer of them. At Daniel's birthday dinner, I noticed Ashley positioning the camera so I was just out of frame. When I mentioned it, she laughed. "Oh, Barbara, you're so sensitive. It's just the angle. Was I being sensitive?" I started to question myself. Maybe this was normal. Maybe I was the problem. A clingy mother, unable to let go. Then came last October. A routine checkup revealed complications from my kidney donation. The remaining kidney was under stress, showing early signs of disease. Nothing immediately life-threatening, my doctor assured me. But I'd need surgery to prevent further deterioration. Minor surgery, but I'd need help during recovery. Someone to drive me home, stay with me for a few days, help with basic tasks. I called Daniel that evening. My hands shook as I dialed. "Honey, I need to talk to you about something." "What's up, Mom? Make it quick. Ashley and I are heading out to dinner." I explained the situation, the surgery, the recovery period. "I wouldn't ask if it wasn't necessary," I said, hating how small my voice sounded. "Just a few days. Maybe you could stay in the guest room." "Mom," his voice was flat, "I can't." The words hit like a physical blow. "What do you mean you can't?" "I'm too busy. We've got the house renovation starting, and I'm up for partner at the firm. Ashley's planning this huge charity gala. It's just not a good time." Not a good time. I'd given him a piece of my body, literally kept him alive, and it wasn't a good time. "Daniel, I gave you my kidney." My voice cracked. I'm not asking you to give me an organ back. I'm asking for 3 days of your time." Silence. Then, "That was your choice, Mom. I didn't ask you to do that." Something inside me fractured, clean and sharp like breaking glass. "Your choice? Look, I'm grateful, okay? But you made that decision. You can't hold it over my head forever. I've got my own life now. Can't you hire a nurse or something? You used to be one. You must have contacts." In the background, I heard Ashley's voice. "Daniel, come on. We're going to be late for our reservation." "I have to go, Mom. We'll talk later." The line went dead. I sat in my kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, listening to the dial tone. Outside, autumn leaves scraped across my driveway. Inside, something had shifted. A door closing, a lock turning. That's when I knew. This wasn't about being busy. This was about something else entirely, something darker. And I intended to find out what. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation, every visit, every small slight I'd ignored. The pattern was suddenly, painfully clear. When had I last been invited to their house in Westchester? Never. Not once since they'd moved in 18 months ago. "It's still such a mess, Barbara," Ashley would say. "We'll have you over when it's presentable." But their Instagram showed perfectly styled rooms, dinner parties with friends, weekend brunches on their back deck. When had Daniel last called just to talk? I couldn't remember. Every conversation was initiated by me, and even then, brief, transactional. "How are you?" "Good, Mom. Listen, I'm in the middle of something." When had they last asked about my life, my health, my needs? The answer was never. Or rather, not since the transplant. Before the surgery, things had been different. Daniel had been attentive, calling twice a week, bringing flowers, cooking dinner at my house. But after I'd served my purpose, I felt sick. Was that all I'd been? A spare parts donor? By dawn, I'd moved past shock into something colder. Anger, yes, but also clarity. I'd spent 32 years putting Daniel first, sacrificing my dating life after his father left when Daniel was 3, working double nursing shifts to pay for his private school, his college, his law school. Never remarrying because I didn't want to introduce complications into his life. And this was my reward, being told I was holding my own kidney over his head. I got out of bed at 6 a.m. and made coffee. My hands were steady now. I had decisions to make. First, the practical matters. Daniel was right about one thing. I needed help with the surgery. I couldn't rely on him, so I wouldn't. I called my doctor's office and asked about home care services. They gave me 3 agency names. By noon, I'd arranged for a nurse to stay with me for 5 days post-surgery. It would cost me $3,200, money I'd saved for a new roof. But the roof could wait. Second, the financial matters. I pulled out my will, drafted 5 years ago. Everything went to Daniel. The house, a 3-bedroom colonial in a good neighborhood, worth about $450,000. My savings modest but respectable after 40 years of nursing. My late mother's jewelry, my car, my life insurance policy. I'd always assumed Daniel would cherish these things, that he'd keep the house, maybe raise children there, remember the Christmas mornings and birthday parties and ordinary evenings we'd shared within these walls. But looking at Ashley's Instagram now, I saw how they lived. Designer furniture, luxury vacations to Turks and Caicos, St. Bart's, the Amalfi Coast, Range Rover in the driveway, $400 dinners at trendy Manhattan restaurants. Where was that money coming from? Daniel made good money as a corporate attorney, certainly, but this level of spending? I did the math. Their mortgage alone must be enormous. And Ashley didn't work. She'd quit her marketing job 2 years ago to focus on wellness and charity work, which seemed to involve expensive activewear and ladies' lunches. A thought crept in, cold and unwelcome. Had they been waiting for their inheritance? Had the kidney donation been insurance? Keeping the golden goose alive just long enough? No, surely not. That was too calculating, too cruel. But the timing nagged at me. Daniel's devotion before the surgery, his distance after, Ashley's increasing presence, her control over our interactions, the way she'd steered conversations toward money, toward the house. "This neighborhood's really appreciated, hasn't it, Barbara?" she'd said last Christmas. "You could sell for a fortune. Not that you should, but it's nice to know you're sitting on such a valuable asset." I opened my laptop and searched for estate attorneys. I needed to change my will, not out of spite, or not only out of spite, but out of clarity. Daniel had made his priorities clear. He didn't need me. He didn't want me. He certainly didn't deserve to profit from my death. But what should I do instead? Leave everything to charity? That felt hollow. I wasn't close to extended family. My sister had died young, and her children lived in California, virtual strangers. I had friends, but bequeathing a house to a friend felt awkward. Then I remembered something. Daniel had mentioned once, years ago, that if anything happened to him before Ashley, everything would go to her. "That's what spouses do, Mom," he'd said when I gently suggested he might want to leave something to me or to charity. Ashley would be alone. She'd need to be taken care of. But I was alone, and I needed to be taken care of. Right now. Not after I was dead. And my son had said no. I found an attorney, Margaret Chen, highly rated, specializing in estate planning. Her office could see me in 2 days. I made the appointment. Then I did something else, something that would seem paranoid if I was wrong, but prudent if I was right. I started documenting everything. Margaret Chen's office was in downtown White Plains, tucked between a Starbucks and a dental clinic. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe 45, with sharp eyes and a firm handshake. "Tell me what brings you in, Barbara," she said, settling behind her desk. I explained the situation, the kidney donation, Daniel's refusal to help, my growing awareness that something was deeply wrong. "I want to change my will," I finished, "but I'm not sure what to change it to." Margaret listened without interrupting, making occasional notes. When I finished, she leaned back. "Let me ask you something. If Daniel called right now, apologized, and offered to help, would you forgive him?" The question surprised me. I thought about it honestly. I don't know. Part of me wants to believe this is just a phase, that he's stressed, that Ashley's influencing him, that he'll come to his senses. But I don't think that's what's happening. I think he's shown me who he is, and I think I need to believe him. Margaret nodded. In my experience, adult children who suddenly become distant after a parent provides significant financial help, or, in your case, a life-saving donation, they often have specific motivations, usually financial. Has Daniel ever asked you about your estate? Not directly, but Ashley has. Comments about the house's value, asking if I'd ever considered downsizing, mentioning how their friend's mother moved to a retirement community and freed up so much equity. Classic probing. Margaret pulled out a legal pad. "Here's what I recommend. We create a new will with specific provisions. First, we establish a revocable living trust. This gives you control during your lifetime, but allows for flexible distribution after death. Second, we name beneficiaries who reflect your current values and relationships. Charities you support, institutions that matter to you, maybe some distant family or friends. But Daniel is still my son, and he can remain in the will. but perhaps not as the primary beneficiary. Perhaps a smaller, fixed amount, enough to show you haven't forgotten him, but not enough to reward his neglect. The word reward struck me. That's exactly what it would be, wouldn't it? Rewarding cruelty with $450,000 in real estate alone? We spent 2 hours drafting the new will. The house would go to a medical charity that provided transplant assistance to low-income families. My savings would be split between 2 nursing scholarships and a local women's shelter. The jewelry would go to the daughter of my closest friend, who'd always admired it. Daniel would receive $10,000 and my car. This will be shocking to him, Margaret warned. I know. And that knowledge brought me a strange sense of peace. I signed the documents, Margaret filed them, it was done. That evening, my phone rang. Daniel. My heart jumped. Had he somehow found out? But no, that was impossible. Hey, Mom. His voice was different, warmer. Listen, I've been thinking about our conversation, about your surgery. Hope flickered, dangerous and unwanted. Yes? Ashley and I talked, and we think we might have found a solution. There's this great facility in New Jersey, assisted recovery. You'd stay there for a week or so, all care provided. We'd be happy to split the cost with you. The hope died. They'd called not to help, but to offer a paid alternative, to bargain down their obligation. How much would it cost? Only about $5,000. Your half would be $2,500. Only my half. I'd given him a kidney, and he wanted me to pay $2,500 to avoid spending 3 days helping me. I've already arranged for home care, I said quietly. Oh, well, that's good then. Problem solved. He sounded relieved. Actually, Mom, since I have you on the phone, Ashley and I were wondering about something. We're doing some financial planning, and our advisor asked about inheritance. Not that we're wishing anything, but for tax purposes, it helps to know what to expect. There it was, the real reason for the call. Your advisor needs to know about my will, just generally. Like, is the house paid off? Are there any debts? It helps with planning our long-term investments. My hand tightened on the phone. The house is paid off, no debts. But Daniel, I don't think my estate is something you need to factor into your financial planning. A pause. What do you mean? I mean, you should build your wealth on your own work, not on expectations of what you might inherit. Another pause. Longer. Mom, are you angry about the surgery thing? Because I explained. I'm not angry, I'm clear. For the first time in a long time, I'm seeing things clearly. That sounds ominous. Does it? I suppose that depends on your perspective. I need to go, Daniel. Take care. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from adrenaline, from the absolute certainty that I'd done the right thing. 2 days later, my phone exploded with messages. The surgery went smoothly. I woke up in recovery with a dull ache in my side and a nurse named Carmen checking my vitals. You did great, honey, she said. We'll have you home tomorrow. True to their word, the home care agency sent a nurse to my house. Her name was Patricia, a sturdy woman in her 50s with capable hands and a no-nonsense attitude. She helped me to bed, prepared meals, managed medications, and asked no questions about why my son wasn't there. On the 3rd day of recovery, my doorbell rang repeatedly. Patricia went to answer it. I heard voices. Daniel's, then Ashley's, higher and sharper. Where's my mother? Daniel demanded. Mrs. Morrison is recovering from surgery and needs rest. I'm her son, let me in. Patricia appeared in my bedroom doorway. Do you want to see them? I should have said no, but curiosity won. Let them in. They burst into my bedroom like a storm. Daniel's face was flushed, his tie loosened. Ashley stayed in the doorway, arms crossed, her expression cold. What the hell is this, Mom? Daniel held up his phone. I got a call from some attorney's office about witness signatures on a new will. What did you do? So that was how they'd found out. Margaret must have needed verification of witnesses. I updated my estate plan. That's my right. Updated? Ashley laughed, brittle and sharp. You cut Daniel out, your only son, after everything he's done for you. Everything he's done. The audacity stole my breath. What exactly has Daniel done for me, Ashley? He accepted your kidney. Do you know what a burden that is? The guilt, the obligation. And now you're punishing him for having his own life. The logic was so twisted, I almost admired it. Let me understand. Daniel accepting the kidney that saved his life? That was him doing me a favor? You're being manipulative, Daniel said, his voice tight. This is emotional blackmail. I looked at my son. Really looked at him. His expensive suit, his Rolex watch, new, I noticed. His perfectly styled hair. He looked successful, polished, confident. He looked nothing like the boy I'd raised, the boy who'd cried when his hamster died, who'd held my hand during thunderstorms, who'd promised, post-surgery, that he'd never forget my sacrifice. I'm not manipulating anyone, I said quietly. I'm making decisions about my own assets, decisions that reflect my values and the relationships in my life. We're your family, Ashley stepped forward. You can't just erase family. Can I? Because Daniel seems to have erased me quite effectively. Tell me, when was the last time either of you asked how I was doing? Not when you wanted something, just asked. Silence. Daniel's jaw worked. Ashley's eyes narrowed. This is about the surgery, Daniel finally said. You're punishing me for being honest, for having boundaries. Boundaries. I tested the word. Is that what we're calling it? You had boundaries against helping your mother for 3 days, but you expect me to leave you $450,000 in real estate? Ashley's sharp intake of breath told me everything. So that's what this was about. They'd done the math. They knew exactly what my death would bring them. You're being unreasonable, Ashley said. Daniel is your only child, your only family. Where else would your estate go? To people and organizations that actually care whether I live or die. You're being dramatic. Am I? I sat up straighter, ignoring the pull of stitches. Let me tell you what happens now. You leave my house. You stop calling unless you have something genuine to say. And you accept that I don't owe you my death to fund your lifestyle. Daniel's face went red. Our lifestyle? You think this is about money? Isn't it? Tell me, Daniel. If I had nothing, if I'd been a waitress living in a trailer, would Ashley have been so interested in marrying you? How dare you? Ashley's voice climbed. I love Daniel. I'm sure you do. I'm also sure you love his earning potential and his inheritance prospects. And now one of those prospects has disappeared and you're furious. We could contest the will, Ashley said coldly. Undue influence, diminished capacity. You're sick, on medication. I was evaluated by my attorney and found completely competent. Try to contest it. Spend your money on lawyers. See where that gets you. Patricia appeared in the doorway. I think it's time for visitors to leave. My patient needs rest. Daniel stood there, trembling with rage or grief. I couldn't tell which. For a moment, I thought he might say something real, something true. Apologize. Explain. Break down and admit he'd been terrible, and beg forgiveness. Instead, he turned and walked out. Ashley followed, throwing back one final glare. The front door slammed. Patricia came back in. You okay, honey? I was. Surprisingly, I was. My hands were steady, my breathing calm. I need to rest, I told her. I slept for 14 hours. When I woke, I felt stronger than I had in months. The flowers arrived 3 days later, 24 white roses in a crystal vase. The card read, Mom, we love you, please call us. Daniel and Ashley. I gave them to Patricia. Put them in your car when you leave. Give them to someone who'll appreciate them. She raised an eyebrow but said nothing. I was learning that good nurses understood family dynamics better than therapists. Next came the gifts: a cashmere throw blanket, a basket of expensive teas and honey, a framed photograph of Daniel and me from his high school graduation 17 years ago. Both of us smiling, my arm around his shoulders. When had we stopped looking at each other like that? I put the photograph in a drawer. I didn't need reminders of what I'd lost, or rather, what I'd never really had. On day 8 of recovery, Ashley called. I let it go to voicemail. Barbara, hi, it's Ashley. I know things got heated the other day. I'm sorry for that. I think we all said things we didn't mean. I'd love to take you to lunch when you're feeling better. Just us girls. We need to talk. Call me back? Her voice was honey sweet, completely false. I deleted the message. Patricia left after 10 days. By then I was moving well, managing my own care, ready to reclaim my life. She hugged me goodbye. You're tough, she said. Tougher than you give yourself credit for. Maybe I was. I was certainly discovering reserves of strength I hadn't known existed. On the first Sunday I could drive, I went to church. I hadn't been in months. First the surgery, then recovery, then more recovery. Father Tom greeted me warmly. Barbara, we've missed you. How are you healing? Better every day. After the service, I stayed for coffee hour. I'd always been peripheral to the social groups here, present but not quite part of them, always rushing off to see Daniel or prepare for his visits. But today, I lingered. Margaret Brennan, a widow in her 60s who volunteered with the parish outreach program, sat beside me. I heard you had surgery. Everything okay? Getting there. On impulse, I added, I'm discovering I have more time these days. I'd like to volunteer if you need help. Her face lit up. Are you serious? We're always desperate for volunteers. We run a meal program on Thursdays. Could you help prepare food? I remembered my nursing shifts, the satisfaction of helping people, the purpose it gave me. I'd love that. We talked for an hour. She told me about her husband's death, her difficult relationship with her own son, her decision to build a life that didn't revolve around waiting for phone calls that never came. Family isn't always blood, she said. Sometimes it's the people who show up. I felt something shift in my chest, relief maybe, or recognition. That week, I helped prepare meals for 40 homeless and low-income families. I chopped vegetables, ladled soup, handed out containers. People thanked me. They remembered my name. One woman, younger than me, with tired eyes and 2 small children, said, You're an angel. This helps so much. Bless you. When had Daniel last said anything like that to me? The answer was never, or rather, not since before the transplant. Before I'd served my purpose, I started filling my calendar, volunteering Thursdays, book club Tuesdays, water aerobics Monday and Wednesday mornings, coffee with Margaret on Saturdays. My life wasn't empty. It had only felt empty because I'd built it around someone who didn't want to be in it. 3 weeks after the confrontation, Daniel texted, Can we talk? Just you and me, no Ashley. Please. I stared at the message. Part of me. The mother part. The part that had nursed him through chicken pox and heartbreak and law school stress, wanted to say yes, to hope he'd found his way back to the son I remembered. But I thought about Ashley's fake sweetness, the gifts clearly designed to manipulate, the flowers, the calculated campaign to soften me up before moving in for the kill. This was just another tactic. I texted back, I don't think that's a good idea right now. I need space. His response came immediately. Space? Mom, you're my mother. We need to work through this. We don't need to do anything. I need to heal and build a life that brings me joy. You need to respect that. This is insane. You're acting like I abused you or something. Was he really that blind? Or was the blindness willful? Daniel, you told me that donating my kidney was my choice and I couldn't hold it over your head. You're right, it was my choice. And this is also my choice. Please respect it. No response. Good. Margaret Brennan called that evening. Hey, some of us are going to a matinee movie on Sunday. Want to come? I'd love to. I hung up smiling. My life wasn't over. It was just beginning. And this time, I was building it on solid ground, not on the quicksand of someone else's conditional love. They arrived on a Saturday morning without warning. I was in the garden pruning roses when I heard the car in the driveway. Daniel's Range Rover. My stomach clenched. By the time I reached the front door, they were already on the porch. Daniel looked haggard, like he hadn't slept well. Ashley was immaculate as always, but her smile was strained. Mom, Daniel's voice was soft, conciliatory. Please, can we come in? We need to talk. Every instinct screamed to say no, but I was tired of this hanging over me. Maybe it was time to finish it. All right, but only for a few minutes. They followed me to the living room. Ashley's eyes scanned everything. The furniture, the artwork, the built-in bookshelves, appraising, calculating value. It made my skin crawl. We sat. Daniel leaned forward, elbows on his knees, the picture of earnest concern. Mom, this has gone on long enough. We've all made mistakes, said things we didn't mean, but we're family. We need to fix this. What exactly do you want to fix, Daniel? This rift between us. The will situation. Everything. I want my mom back. The words should have warmed me. Instead, they felt rehearsed. When did you lose your mom? He blinked. What? You say you want me back. When did you lose me? Was it when you told me accepting my kidney was a burden? When you refused to help with my surgery? When you asked about your inheritance while I was still recovering? Ashley cut in, her voice sharp. See, this is the problem. You keep dwelling on the past instead of moving forward. Daniel is here, trying to reconcile, and you're throwing everything in his face. I'm not throwing anything. I'm asking questions. Questions designed to make him feel guilty. Ashley's mask was slipping. Good. You're manipulating him with guilt because you're angry he has a life beyond you. Is that what this is? I looked at Daniel. Do you think I'm trying to manipulate you? He hesitated. Ashley jumped in again. What we think is that you made a rash decision when you were hurt and emotional. We understand, but now it's time to be reasonable. To undo this will and go back to normal. There it was, the real agenda. Let me be clear, I said slowly. You didn't come here to reconcile. You came here to manipulate me into changing my will back. This entire conversation is a performance. That's not true. Daniel's voice rose. I want to fix our relationship. Then let's fix it. Let's start with honesty. Tell me the truth, Daniel. When did you and Ashley start planning for your inheritance? The question landed like a bomb. Daniel's face went white. Ashley's went red. That's an insane accusation, Ashley sputtered. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, everything makes sense now. Your sudden interest in my finances, the comments about the house value, the distance after the transplant. You didn't need to butter me up anymore, did you? The kidney was secured. Now you just had to wait for the payout. How dare you? Ashley stood up, shaking. We've been nothing but loving to you. We invite you into our lives. We spend time with you. We care about you. You've invited me to your house exactly 0 times in 18 months. You spend time with me maybe once every 6 weeks, and you care about me so much that when I needed help, you offered to let me pay for institutional care. We have busy lives. Ashley was screaming now, her composure completely shattered. We have responsibilities, a mortgage. We can't just drop everything because you need attention. I didn't ask for attention. I asked for 3 days of help after surgery. Daniel stood too. His hands were clenched into fists, not threatening, just impotent rage. You want to punish me? Fine, punish me. Cut me out of your will, but don't pretend this is about principle. This is revenge because I didn't dance to your tune. My tune was, Please help me recover from surgery. That's a pretty reasonable tune, Daniel. You're impossible. He turned away, hands in his hair. When he turned back, his face was twisted. You know what? Keep your money, keep your house, leave it all to strangers. See if I care. You clearly do care. That's why you're here. Ashley grabbed Daniel's arm. Come on, we don't need this. We don't need her. She looked at me with pure venom. You're a bitter, lonely old woman who's going to die alone. And you know what? You deserve it. They stormed out. The front door slammed so hard a picture frame fell off the wall. I sat in the sudden silence, shaking. Not from sadness, from anger, from adrenaline, from the absolute confirmation that everything I'd suspected was true. They didn't love me. They loved what I represented. A bank account, a real estate asset, an inheritance. My phone buzzed, a text from Margaret Brennan. Still on for movie tomorrow. My hand steadied. Yes, I had friends. I had a community. I had a life that didn't revolve around waiting for crumbs of affection from people who saw me as a means to an end. I texted back, absolutely, can't wait. Then I blocked Daniel's number and Ashley's. I was done. The call from Margaret Chen came 3 months later. Barbara, I need to let you know. Daniel has filed a petition to contest your will. He's claiming undue influence and diminished capacity. I'd been expecting this, dreading it, but expecting it. What do we need to do? We need to demonstrate that you were fully competent when you made the changes, that no one coerced you, that you understood exactly what you were doing. Can you come to a deposition next week? Of course. The deposition took place in a sterile conference room downtown. Daniel's lawyer was a slick man in his 40s named Richard Moss. Daniel and Ashley sat beside him, Ashley's hand possessively on Daniel's arm. Margaret sat beside me. Under the table, she squeezed my hand once. Reassurance. Richard Moss smiled, all fake warmth. Mrs. Morrison, thank you for being here. This is just a formality. We're trying to understand your state of mind when you made certain dramatic changes to your estate plan. My state of mind was clear. Were you on any medications at the time? Post-surgical pain medication, prescribed and monitored by my doctor. And those medications, did they affect your judgment, make you feel emotional or confused? No, they managed pain. My thinking was perfectly clear. He flipped through papers. Your son, Daniel, donated a kidney to you. I'm sorry, you donated a kidney to him 3 years ago, correct? Correct. That must have been emotionally intense, life-altering. Would you say you felt vulnerable afterward, perhaps dependent on your son's gratitude? I saw what he was doing, painting me as a manipulative mother who'd use the donation as leverage. I felt grateful I could help save my son's life. I didn't expect anything in return. And yet, when he couldn't assist with your subsequent surgery, you immediately changed your will. That seems like you did expect something. I expected basic human decency. When that proved unavailable, I adjusted my plans accordingly. Ashley leaned forward, her voice dripping with false concern. Barbara, you were so hurt. We understand. You weren't thinking clearly. That's why we're here, to help you see that you made a mistake when you were emotional. Margaret's hand touched my arm, a warning, don't engage. But I was tired of not engaging. I wasn't emotional, Ashley. I was clear-sighted. For the first time in years, I saw the situation exactly as it was. Richard jumped in. Mrs. Morrison, did anyone advise you to change your will? Perhaps someone at your church? A friend who might benefit from your estate? No one benefits directly from my estate except charities. My attorney helped me execute my wishes, but those wishes were entirely my own. Let's talk about those wishes. He pulled out a document. You left your son, your only child, $10,000 and a car. Everything else goes to organizations he has no connection to. Doesn't that seem disproportionate? Even cruel? What seems cruel to me is a son telling his mother that accepting a life-saving organ was a burden, that helping her for 3 days was too much to ask, that she should hire help instead. Daniel flinched. Good. I didn't mean it that way. Daniel's voice cracked. Mom, I was stressed. I said it wrong. I didn't mean... What did you mean then? I turned to face him fully. Explain to me what you meant. He stammered. Ashley gripped his arm tighter. Don't let her twist your words. But there was no twisting necessary. The truth was simple and ugly. Richard tried to regain control. Mrs. Morrison, isn't it true that you've always been controlling? That you've used money and guilt to manipulate Daniel throughout his life? Margaret stood up. That's editorializing and inappropriate. You can ask factual questions or we're done here. Fine. Mrs. Morrison, did you frequently remind Daniel of the sacrifices you made for him? Every parent makes sacrifices. I worked hard to give Daniel opportunities. I didn't throw that in his face. But you thought about it. You kept score. No, I loved freely, until I realized that love was being exploited. Ashley exploded. Exploited! We've done nothing but put up with your neediness, your constant demands for attention, your jealousy of our life. Margaret raised a hand. Mrs. Cartwright, you're not the deponent. I don't care. She's sitting there playing the victim when she's the one who's vindictive and petty. She gave Daniel a kidney. So what? Parents are supposed to sacrifice for their children. That's the deal. And she's holding it over his head like he owes her his entire life. The room went silent. Richard Moss looked like he wanted to disappear. Even Daniel looked horrified. Ashley had just articulated exactly the attitude I'd suspected all along. Parents sacrifice, children take, and there's no gratitude required because it's the deal. Margaret smiled. I think we have everything we need. This deposition is concluded. We walked out. In the hallway, Margaret whispered, She just destroyed their case. You couldn't have scripted that better. I felt exhausted but triumphant. What happens now? Now, we wait for them to realize they've lost. It took 2 weeks. The petition was withdrawn. The letter arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. Official letterhead from Richard Moss's firm. Notice of withdrawal of petition to contest. Last will and testament. Margaret called 30 minutes later. You won. Just like that? Just like that. After Ashley's outburst, they knew they had no case. More than that, they knew continuing would expose them. The deposition transcript would be public record. Anyone could see what they really think, what they're really after. I sat down heavily. It's really over? The legal part is. The personal part, that's up to you. But the personal part was already over, wasn't it? It had been over the moment Daniel told me accepting his kidney was a burden. I didn't call him. I didn't reach out. I simply continued living my life. Volunteering at the church on Thursdays became a highlight of my week. Margaret and I became genuine friends. Coffee dates turned into dinner parties, shared confidences, the kind of friendship I'd never prioritized when Daniel consumed all my emotional energy. I joined a book club, started taking painting classes, traveled to Vermont for a weekend retreat that Margaret organized. For the first time in decades, I felt free. 6 months after the deposition, I ran into one of Ashley's friends at the grocery store. Karen, I'd met her once at a dinner Daniel and Ashley had hosted years ago. Barbara. She looked uncomfortable. How are you? I'm well, thank you. She hesitated, then leaned in. I don't know if you've heard, but Daniel and Ashley are having some difficulties. I should have walked away, but curiosity won. Oh? Financial difficulties. Apparently they'd overextended themselves. Bought the house assuming... She stopped, face reddening. Well, anyway, they're selling, moving to something smaller, and Ashley's going back to work. So they'd been counting on my death, or at least my generosity, And when that evaporated, their house of cards collapsed. I felt no satisfaction, just a distant sadness for what might have been. I hope they work it out, I said, and meant it. Not for them, for Daniel. Despite everything, some small part of me still remembered the boy he'd been, but I couldn't save him from himself. Not anymore. A year after I changed my will, Father Tom asked me to speak to the congregation about my volunteer work. I almost said no. Public speaking terrified me. But Margaret encouraged me. You have a story people need to hear. So I stood up on a Sunday morning and talked about what I'd learned. About building a life of purpose beyond family obligation. About finding community when blood relatives failed you. About the freedom that came from releasing expectations and choosing joy. I didn't mention Daniel by name, but I talked about sacrifice and how it should never come with strings attached, yet how it also shouldn't be taken for granted. About the difference between unconditional love and unconditional tolerance of mistreatment. We teach people how to treat us, I said, by what we accept, by what we excuse, by what we allow to continue. I accepted less than I deserved for years because I was afraid of being alone. But I learned that being alone is far better than being used. The congregation was silent. After the service, 7 people approached me. 3 were dealing with difficult adult children. 2 had cut off toxic parents. 1 was struggling with a manipulative sibling. All of them said the same thing. Thank you for saying it out loud. I realized then that my story wasn't unique. The details differed, but the pattern was universal. People who gave endlessly to family members who took endlessly. People who feared that setting boundaries meant they were bad parents, bad children, bad siblings. People who needed permission to choose themselves. 2 years after the will change, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Daniel standing there, alone. He looked older, thinner, humbled. Mom, can we talk? I almost said no, almost closed the door. But something in his face stopped me. Not entitlement, not anger. Something broken. 5 minutes, I said. We sat on the porch. He didn't ask to come inside. I'm sorry. His voice was raw, for all of it. You were right about everything. About Ashley, about me, about what we became. Are you here because you're sorry or because you need something? He flinched but didn't look away. I'm here because I'm sorry. Ashley and I divorced. I'm in therapy. I'm trying to understand how I became someone who could treat you that way. And I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect anything. I just needed you to know that I see it now. What I did. Who I was. And I'm ashamed. Tears ran down his face. Real tears, not manipulative ones. I felt something crack inside me. Not forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe never. But something softer than the ice I'd been carrying. I appreciate you telling me that, I said carefully. I hope therapy helps you. Is there any chance we could... No. I said it gently but firmly. Not now. Maybe not ever. You broke something, Daniel. Something that can't be fixed with an apology. He nodded, wiping his eyes. I understand. I love you, Mom. I know I didn't show it, but I do. I know you do. But love isn't enough. It never was. He left. I watched him drive away. And I felt, for the first time in years, completely at peace. 3 years after I changed my will, I sold my house. Not because I needed to. Not because anyone pressured me. But because I wanted to. The 4-bedroom colonial had become too large, too full of memories, good and bad. It was time for something new. I bought a 2-bedroom condo in a 55-plus community 30 minutes away. Bright, modern, manageable. It had a balcony overlooking a pond where ducks gathered in the evenings. The community had a fitness center, a library, social events. I wasn't isolated. I was surrounded by people in similar life stages, building friendships, enjoying freedom. Margaret Brennan moved into the same complex 6 months after me. We had coffee on my balcony every Saturday morning, watching the ducks, talking about books and politics and the volunteers we worked with. "You seem happy," she said one morning. "Really happy, not just making the best of it happy." She was right. I was happy. Genuinely, surprisingly happy. My days had structure and purpose. Mondays and Wednesdays were water aerobics, followed by lunch with the class regulars. Tuesdays were book club. Thursdays, I volunteered at the church meal program, and afterward, a group of us would go out for coffee and dessert. Fridays, I painted. I'd gotten good enough that my watercolors sold at the community craft fair, with proceeds going to the scholarship fund I'd established in my will. Weekends were for adventures, day trips to museums, hiking trails, historical sites. Margaret and I drove to the Berkshires, to the Connecticut coast, to the Hudson Valley. We saw plays, visited gardens, tried new restaurants. I felt younger at 60 than I had at 50. I dated casually. Nothing serious, but I enjoyed male company again. Dinner dates, movie nights, easy companionship with men who were also building second-act lives after loss or divorce or empty nesting. No pressure, no expectations, just pleasant moments shared. My health improved, regular exercise, less stress, better sleep. My remaining kidney was functioning well. My doctor was pleased. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it," she said at my annual checkup. What I was doing was living for myself, finally. I heard about Daniel through mutual acquaintances. Not often. I didn't seek out information, but occasionally someone would mention something, and I'd listen with polite interest, like hearing about a distant cousin. The divorce from Ashley had been brutal. She'd fought for everything, including the debts they'd accumulated. In the end, Daniel got the debt. She got the furniture. He'd moved into a one-bedroom apartment in Yonkers, lost the partner track position at his firm due to the stress affecting his work, and was rebuilding from scratch. Part of me felt sad for him. The larger part understood that consequences were necessary teachers. Ashley remarried within a year, a finance executive 15 years older. I saw the wedding photos on Facebook before I unfriended her. She looked triumphant, victorious, like she'd upgraded. I wondered how long it would take before she started calculating his net worth and estate plan. Daniel reached out occasionally. A text on my birthday, a Christmas card. Always brief, never asking for anything, just staying in touch from a respectful distance. I responded politely but distantly. The bridge between us hadn't collapsed entirely, but it was damaged beyond full repair. Karen, Ashley's former friend, joined my book club. Over wine one evening, she confessed, "I always knew Ashley was calculating, but I didn't realize how bad it was until the divorce. She literally told me she'd married Daniel partly because his mother had valuable real estate and no other heirs. She thought she'd hit the jackpot. And then I changed my will," I said. "And then you changed your will." She was furious, absolutely apoplectic. She kept saying you'd stolen her inheritance. Karen laughed bitterly. "Your inheritance? From your life? Like she'd earned it somehow." I shook my head. I hope she's happy with her new husband. I doubt it. She's already complaining he's too controlling, doesn't let her spend freely. Turns out men with money are careful about women who marry them for money. There was a lesson there, maybe several. Meanwhile, my life expanded in ways I'd never imagined. I became a mentor through the hospital volunteer program, supporting families going through transplants. I shared my story, the medical part, not the family drama, and helped people navigate the emotional complexity of organ donation. One woman, about my age, cried when I finished talking. "My daughter needs a kidney. I'm a match. But I'm scared. Scared of the surgery. scared of the recovery, scared of afterward. Scared your daughter won't appreciate the sacrifice? I asked gently. She nodded, ashamed. Let me tell you something, I said. Donate because you want to save her life. Donate because you can, but don't donate expecting it to change your relationship. Don't donate thinking it will make her love you more, treat you better, appreciate you forever. Donate freely or don't donate at all. She thought about that. Did you regret it? Donating to your son? No, I regret nothing about saving his life. I only regret expecting it to mean something it didn't. She had the surgery. 6 months later, she sent me a thank you note. Her daughter was thriving. Their relationship was complicated but honest. She didn't regret it. Neither did I. I'd given Daniel life twice. Once at birth, once with my kidney. What he did with that life was his choice. What I did with mine was finally, blessedly, mine. And I chose joy. So that's my story. I gave my kidney to save my son's life. When I needed him, he called it a burden. I changed my will, and I changed my life. Was I right? Was I wrong? I don't know. I only know I chose myself when no one else would. What would you have done? Would you have forgiven? Would you have fought? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe. I share stories like this, real, complicated, human stories, regularly. Stories about family, betrayal, resilience, and second chances. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And remember, you deserve to be treated well even by family, especially by family. Take care of yourselves.